role will Archie and Lily have in the coronation? And will Harry get the security that he so desperately thinks he needs? Something that is essentially above that of his brother and his father. Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about the update regarding the coronation in terms of the procession, what role the Wales' children will play, and the role that perhaps Archie and Lily could or could not play. It sounds like the royals probably have very much a plan already in place, and it really doesn't include the Sussexes very much. However, Harry and Meghan, I believe, really want to be the center of the show here. Do they want to get on the balcony? What are some of the other things going on behind the scenes with the coronation? We'll be going over that. In addition, we will also be discussing Harry's ongoing case against the Mail on Sunday regarding his security arrangements. Yes, he is suing the Mail on Sunday yet again because Harry and Meghan, they cannot do anything without lawyers. And they want to push back against the narrative that Harry apparently, allegedly, perhaps wanted to keep some of his lawsuit against the government secret in terms of his security arrangements. Harry wanted to go ahead and, although he was claiming, quote unquote, maybe kind of sort of, that he was going to pay for Met security, there are some questions about that. The Mail on Sunday brought that up, and Harry is now suing them over it. And so what does this mean for the coronation? Because I did a video recently discussing the coronation, but I did not include this aspect of it, and I think this is rather important to explain. So we will be going over all these details today, but if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary on the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip as well. In addition, I'll be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing a bit about history too, so if you want to subscribe, that would be awesome. I also have a weekly newsletter. I also have a fashion channel that's on a hiatus but should be back in April, and then I also have a survey down below, so if you're interested in coming on a guided tour with me in Europe talking about royals, I will have a survey there for you to fill out because my trip to London and the Cotswolds is full. Yes, and I do have a wait list if you're interested, and we'll probably do that trip again, but I have a couple others I think that would be really interesting as well. One to Germany and Austria, and the other one to Scotland, because I know those, at least Scotland definitely is a huge thing on people's lists, and I think the Germany and Austria one is filled with castles. So, especially Neuschwanstein in Bavaria and Hohenschwangau. So those are two very unique places and just gorgeous locations. So if you guys are interested in that, feel free to check that out. And before we get into today's video, happy Mother's Day in the UK. Our Mother's Day in the United States is not till May, but we have been blessed today with 2 new pictures of Catherine and her children. So one of all 3 of her children, they are up in a tree. I think this is a gorgeous shot. It's so cute. I love that they're all in a tree. That's kind of fun and different. And then we also have one with Catherine holding Louis. So I'm sure he's definitely her baby. I'm sure she really misses the baby cuddle stage because I'm not sure probably if she can lift George anymore. He probably weighs about as much as she does now, and he's getting so big, and we have little Charlotte, but Louis is still her baby. And so these pictures were taken this summer. This was right before the Queen's death, right before they started school. So the pictures are a little old, but I think they are adorable. So I'm so glad we have these shots. And of course, we'll be seeing the kids later this year. They will be playing a huge role at the coronation, and it sounds like all 3 are going to attend. So this is a report from the Times of London, which is a very reputable source. And it was also an article done by Valentine Lowe, who wrote the book, The Courtiers, which I have a copy of right here. Actually, I have 2. And one's an American one, it's a British one. And not to mention the fact that he is a very reputable reporter, and apparently he was given access to at least some of the plans. And it looks like that the procession going back to the palace will be just the working members of the royal family, and this includes the Wales' children. I don't know when it comes to the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. I don't know if Lady Louise and now the Earl of Wessex will be there as well. So this is James, his son, who used to be Viscount Severn until Edward got upgraded to the title of the Duke of Edinburgh. Anyways, they will be in the procession going back to the palace following the Golden Coach. I actually had a chance to check out the Golden Coach because I want to do a whole video on it. here in the coming weeks. And it is a gorgeous piece. It's at the Royal Mews. It's very cool to see it. It's very, very ornate, very heavy. I also saw it at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, but I was a bit behind a big barrier thing, which you can see in the video there a bit. So it was really, really awesome to see it, and we will see it in the streets of London, bringing back the King and Queen from their coronation. It is apparently very, very uncomfortable, but they will go ahead and be using it. I'm not sure which carriage the rest of the royals will be using, but I saw most of them, or at least the most senior, I think, level ones. So perhaps one of these upcoming carriages will be used for the Waleses. There is one carriage, I think, for England, one for Northern Ireland, and one for Scotland. I don't know if there was one for Wales though. I don't think there was when we did the tour. That would have been the perfect one for the Prince and Princess of Wales. There's a couple of options that they could choose. I think it probably depends somewhat on the weather. If it's a very, very rainy day, which hopefully it is not, then perhaps I think they'll get something that is open carriage so we can all check them out. The Queen's Platinum Jubilee last year in in June, we had phenomenal weather. It was pretty warm that day. It was still chilly, but it was fairly warm. I actually ended up getting sunburned of all things because we were out in the sun and the sun was shining, which is something that does not happen in the UK a ton sometimes. So I think this will be a gorgeous procession. So it'll be not only Catherine and William and their kids, it'll be the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, it'll be Princess Anne and her husband, Sir Timothy Lawrence. We also have the Duke of Kent, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, and Princess Alexandra. So it'll depend on what they decide to do. I can see Alexandra and the Duke of Kent being in a carriage together because they're siblings. We also have the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester. They will probably be in one themselves, and perhaps everybody else will be sparsed out in their couple groups, or they could group a couple of people together. It all depends probably on how big they want this procession to be. We have been told it will also be smaller than the one during the Queen's coronation. The route back to the palace will be shorter. I'm sure this will be one that they utilize probably for the Queen's funeral. I'm sure it'll be very similar in terms of length. It'll also require fewer regiments, so this will very much be slimmed down a bit from the Queen's, and obviously it's been 70 years, so it makes a lot more sense to make it a bit smaller. The ceremony itself will be shorter, and this will be especially important for the children. So Charles did attend part of his mother's coronation, but he did get bored. He was 4, so he was actually taken out, I think, after about an hour. There is one rather famous picture of him looking somewhat bored. So they definitely want to make sure that the kids will be good. I don't think there'll be any issue with George and Charlotte. George will be 10 later this year. Charlotte will have just turned 8 before the coronation, and Louis will have just turned 5. So he will be a bit more of a question mark, but hopefully this time in school that he's had this last year has helped him understand and learn how to sit in one spot for a while. And I'm sure his parents are working really, really hard on that. And I'm sure, again, if they need him to get out for some reason because he's started to get a little bit rambunctious or tired or fussy, they'll have Nanny Maria take him out. But I'm sure that the idea is for him to be there the whole time, and if not, he will be brought out for the procession back. And I think this is huge. And George apparently will also have a broader role in some sense, which I think is critically important as he is the future Prince of Wales. He is the future king. He does need to have a bit of a larger role than some of the other children. And so I think he will be very, very important. And I think just having the Wales' kids there is critical because they are the future. That's the thing. They are this huge aspect of the future of the monarchy. And I think what's critical, and I wish Catherine and William to a certain extent would do this more, is have more pictures with the children be released, more time with the public, because what they need to do is they really need to build the public's interest in their children, because their children are the future. And if the public's not interested in their children, yeah, things may not go so well after a point, because the connection as the public put into these children who are very much public figures, even though they are children, is key for the monarchy going forward. Without it, the monarchy just doesn't have much of a chance, really, because if we're not invested in their lives and them growing up, then what happens after 20 or 30 years when they're adults and then suddenly we're supposed to care and we don't? And this is a key thing I think Harry and Meghan have completely 100%, 1,000% missed is that nobody is invested in Archie and Lily. There wasn't even broad support for them having the title of Prince and Princess. I won't even call them that because I just think it's silly. They live in California and they have zero connection to the monarchy. They've hardly spent any time with their family. Harry and Meghan say, well, we want to make sure they have their birthright because, you know, they could change their minds. It's like, rarely do people have royal titles and themselves decide to take a step back. No, no, no. It's better actually for them to not have it at all and then at some point say, yes, I do want to be elevated. That was the route Lady Louise and, well, really her parents took. And I think that was a very smart move. She is, I hate to say it this way, constitutionally irrelevant. So it just didn't make much sense for her to be a princess at this point because all the monarchies are slipping down. This is not just a British thing. All the monarchies in Europe, if you are a child of one of the spares, you are no longer have an HRH, His or Her Royal Highness, and Prince or Princess. You will maybe be stripped of the HRH status. You will maybe have just an HH, so His Highness status. This is the case in Norway. Missing the HRHs is the case in Sweden. And then we have the case in Denmark where the Queen stripped down her kids' titles, her grandchildren's titles from Prince and Princess to Count and Countess. This was the case in our spare son, Joachim, who is moving to the United States with his wife, Marie, this coming year. And that was kind of interesting because she said that was a total rumor, and then like a week or two later, it was confirmed by the palace. So I was like, well, why did you deny it when... I was confused. But anyways, the whole of Europe is going in this direction because what they're finding essentially is that because of the length of the lives that we lead, there's just not much sense anymore in having a plethora of children with royal prince and princess titles because it's not really something they need. And because of this connection to the crown that their titles inevitably have, they to a certain extent represent the monarchy. And I wrote a whole email newsletter from my Royal Wire talking about how I won't call Archie Prince and Princess because I feel like the title of Prince and Princess should mean something. And for Harry and Meghan, it's a gigantic publicity stunt. It was a giant way for Harry and Meghan to put up a middle finger to the monarchy, to shove their kids in. And will it benefit their children? No, I think their children are liked less because of the move. I think Harry and Meghan are liked less because of the move. And I think the monarchy doesn't come out quite as good as in the move. So what was the point of that, Harry and Meghan? Well, maybe Harry and Meghan wanted their kids included in the ceremony, and they thought, because they're not that smart, neither one of them, Meghan has no clue how royalty works whatsoever, that perhaps maybe if we make our kids Prince and Princess, well, they'll put them in the ceremony. Well, the answer is no. The monarchy is not going to put their kids in the ceremony at all, I don't think. And Harry and Meghan have made other demands, like they want to be on the balcony, and they want to be a part of, I think, a lot of the things. But here is how I think Harry and Meghan will be treated. And I covered some of this in a previous video, but I think it bears more mentioning here now that we have some more details. We know they won't be in the procession. They will not be in the ceremony. There is no plans for them. They're too young. And also, you got to think, the monarchy has no idea how these children will behave. No clue. They haven't spent any time with them. They've only... Who knows? Charles only met Archie really a handful of times before they left, and I think he's hardly seen the kids since. So, and he's probably met Lily once or twice, and that's it. So how do they know how their kids are going to behave in a very serious situation? This is not something where you take a risk of a kid having a gigantic meltdown in the middle of Westminster Abbey at your grandfather's coronation. That's not how this game is played here. So Archie and Lily will appropriately be not included in this. Now, Archie will have just turned 4. If he was very respectful, maybe. But again, the monarchy doesn't know. And I think one of the bigger indicators is sometimes, especially for a service like that, probably the best way to gauge a child is if he or she went to church a lot, because part of the service sometimes, not all the time, but depending on the church setup, the children do sit in the main congregation for a period of time, sometimes all the time, depending on the parents. Sometimes they sit there for the beginning and then they go out to children's church. And so you learn to a certain extent in situations where perhaps it wouldn't fly in other ways to sit and be quiet and respectful for a certain period of time. At least I did as a child when I was in church. So we know Harry and Meghan are not churchgoers because they called their bishop an archbishop, and Harry thinks he's reincarnated as animals, so we know they have no clue what the Christian faith means at all. So, but they wanted the christening because they wanted that title. So, children will not be included. And they won't be included on the balcony. I think if the procession coming back from the palace is only working members of the royal family, the group on the balcony will only be working royals or just Charles, Camilla, and the Waleses, and that's it. As it should be. Because again, this is an image of the future, not an image of the broad royal family. I think that'll happen just a month later at the Trooping the Color. Everybody can wait till then. If Harry and Meghan really want their kids on the balcony, that is their opportunity. It's not there during the service because they are private citizens now. That was their choice and they got to live with it. And when it comes to perhaps dinners and receptions, the Times said that they're making plans for these various situations as if Harry and Meghan are going because it's easier to take somebody away than it is to add someone at the last minute. And again, Harry and Meghan are dragging their feet about this because they're hoping that if they throw a bit of a tantrum in the lead up, that perhaps the monarchy will say, oh, okay, fine, you can be on the balcony. Well, you know what, Harry and Meghan, you tried that at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and how well did that work for you? It didn't work at all, and I don't think it'll work this time. Because I think, though the Queen obviously had final veto power on everything, I think actually a lot of the Platinum Jubilee was led by Charles and William. And I think it should have been, because the Queen was 96. And even though she was still very much with it, I don't think anybody doubted that, she's tired. There's a lot of rumors that she perhaps was battling with some bone cancer. And the future at this point was Charles and William. And Charles and William needed to be at the forefront, I think, in a lot of ways of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So I think they did have a lot of say. And I think it was their say with the Queen's approval that said, no, Harry and Meghan will not be seated right next to us as in the order of precedence. They'll be on the other side of the aisle next to Sarah Chateau, which is Princess Margaret's daughter. And they will very much be relegated to behind the scenes, second row back. That is how they were treated. This is how they'll be treated this time too. So I don't think they'll be at there may be a big family reception, you know, something with the dukes and lords of the kingdom, something like that. But if there is a diplomatic reception, so this is outside royals, outside representatives, diplomats, those sorts of things, Harry and Meghan will not be included in any type of dinner like that, just as they were during the Queen's funeral. Now, they tried to get subtly invited to that by reporting that they'd received the invitation, that the invitation was rescinded. And I'm like, I don't believe any of that, so I don't know what you guys are talking about. I don't think they were ever invited to that. I think that was a stunt to try to get themselves invited. And the monarchy's like, no, you have no role here. And this is something Harry and Meghan have continued to struggle with. Harry and Meghan, you got to remember, during Mexit, they had this plan. They put it on a website. They wanted to be part-time working royals. That means they got to do the fun things. They still got to represent the monarchy. They still got to go on tours in the Commonwealth, paid for if you were the UK citizen by the taxpayer. And if they came to whatever country they went to, paid for by Australia, Canada, perhaps India, Pakistan, just thinking of some Commonwealth countries, even the United States, we would be covering their security bills and other arrangements while they did tours because they were so special and important to the Commonwealth. Well, when the monarchy rightly said no, because I think they knew, which was completely correct, that Meghan and Harry could not be trusted to have the monarchy's best interests at heart, they're purely motivated by greed and money, is that they had to sever and say, no, you can't do that. Well, Harry and Meghan still are desperate for that status. They're still desperate to be treated as royals. That's right. They made their kids a prince and princess for no discernible purpose. Again, if Meghan could tell me 5 things about Sussex and point it out to me on a map, I'd be completely shocked. Completely shocked, because she spent 1 day there. Her kids will probably never spend any time there. Them having the title of Prince and Princess of Sussex is stupid. It's just stupid. So I just don't think that'll work out very well. So Harry and Meghan were desperate to continue on their royal status, their royal trajectory. That was their plan in mind. And when the monarchy said no, I think they're still having a really, really hard time adjusting to the fact that they are not only not important, but they are not royals like they were. They are second-rate, cut-rate royals. They cannot be on the balcony. They cannot do the things the other royals are doing. And Harry and Meghan cannot understand that. And that, I think, is partly what's fueling Harry's huge security row with the government and with the Mail on Sunday. Again, there's the case against and the judicial review he's trying to get for his REVIC security arrangement. So REVIC, I can't remember what the acronym exactly stands for, but it's a group that decides who gets taxpayer-funded security. And when Harry and Meghan decide to leave, REVIC was taken back from them. They're like, you cannot do your own thing and have a taxpayer-funded security. That's stupid. And it's a waste of the taxpayers' money. It's a waste of taxpayers' time. It's a waste of resources. It's a drain on resources, which is 100% the decision that should have been made. Because when Harry and Meghan were in Canada, they had British security agents in Canada with them away from their families during the holidays, or they had to bring their families for the holidays, and they weren't surrounded by the security apparatus of whatever palace they happened to be in, so Sandringham, Windsor, what have you. So Harry and Meghan were over there, and then the Royal Mounted Police, I think it was an augment of that security arrangement. So the Canadian taxpayers were covering Harry and Meghan's security. And obviously, nobody really wants that. Nobody really wants to cover security for people who have no discernible job with the government anymore and who are doing their own thing. Again, this is simple logic, but simple logic is completely lost on Harry and Meghan, as is cause and effect. It is a mystery to them. It is a mystery to them why things don't go their way when they make stupid decisions, because they're not bright people. So when it came to this security arrangement, it was rescinded, and Harry is suing and trying to get into an investigation into the government as to why this occurred, because to him, it's not William, it's not Charles, it's not George, Charlotte, or Louis who are at most at risk when it comes to being in Britain, in a place where, for the most part, guns are illegal. No. Harry, and his wife and children are have the gravest security risk compared to the rest of the monarchy. When you think about that, the hubris to believe that is pretty crazy. Not to mention the fact that the only people who have had things happen to them in the last 2 years or so that have been threats, perhaps on the royal family, the monarchy itself, has happened to the Queen. A guy tried to scale the walls of Windsor to go and kill her, I think with a crossbow. And Charles had egg thrown at him at least a couple of times. So why is Harry under the delusional belief, paranoid belief, that somehow he has this graver threat? And anytime he goes to the UK, he must have this huge, massive security arrangement apparatus around him, at least partially augmented by the Met security. And I don't care what Harry says, even though he says, I'll pay for it. Because of the fact that there are administrative assistants involved, there's scheduling involved, different things, not all the costs related to Harry paying for the security arrangements will eliminate whatever burden is on the taxpayer. So the taxpayers in some way will have to bear somewhat the cost if Harry gets his way in terms of the Met security. Not to mention the fact, it's like the Met security also asked Harry, well, hey, let us know 28 days ahead of time if you're coming, and we can review the security. Because here's the thing, they're reviewing the security, and this is the same for all royals within the monarchy. If there is an actual threat on your life, if there is chatter and a threat to your life, you will get that additional security if you need it. At big family events, like the Coronation, like the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, you will get Met security protection because it is a big event. There's a lot of eyes and people there, and it's a potential target for terrorist activity. So yes, you will be, to a certain extent, under that umbrella because that makes sense at the time. But Harry doesn't want that, and he didn't want to do that because he just thought it was too much. And then one time when he came to the UK, one single paparazzi guide followed him from the Well Child event. And here's the thing that Harry is missing. Harry, you are a celebrity now. You are not a royal. Ergo, you will be chased by the paparazzi, and that's your problem now. That's your problem because that's the life you chose. You chose celebrity over royalty. And I know you probably don't get that because you're not that bright. Your wife isn't that bright. And I don't think she totally explained it to you. And I don't think you guys totally recognize what would happen. But it's not the Met's problem that you were chased by the paparazzi when you're somebody who brings attention upon yourself and you are a celebrity now. Ed Sheeran deals with that. Elizabeth Hurley deals with that. Elton John, they all deal with it. It is not the Met's job to address your idiocy. It's not the taxpayer's job to address your idiocy, because this is the thing. Harry is worried all the time about his security. But what if it's not his position, his role within the family that increases his security risk? What if it's his own behavior? What if it's his wife's behavior? Then that should not be the taxpayer's problem if you're an idiot. It should be your problem. That's your problem now. If you're the one who decided to publicly out the alleged number of Taliban fighters that you supposedly killed in Afghanistan, that should not be the taxpayer's problem. That was your own dumb mistake. You put a number to it. You put a number to it. So that, yes, may increase your risk, but why should the taxpayer fund your stupidity? That is your problem now, because you're the one who decided to do that. You could have left it vague. You could have left it quite vague. And I don't think it would have hurt anybody, because you said, well, it's going to help soldiers if they know how many people I killed, because then we can compare and then they can feel better about themselves because maybe they only killed 5 and I killed 25. So like, I don't think that works that well. And that should be something done privately. There's no reason to put it down pen to paper. And you and your wife have made a habit and a career out of attacking your family. And wouldn't you know it, the British public who is attached to your family perhaps does not like that. And because of that, they may like you less. And so ergo, there might be a bigger target on you because you were the one who attacked your family, called them racist. In fact, the guy who almost attacked the Queen, he was going after her based on something that happened decades ago that had colonial and racist implications. Based on the allegations that you and your wife made, this happened after you and your wife's allegations. So, hey now, isn't it a thought? Isn't it a possibility maybe that because you made those statements, he was inspired to go and try to attack your grandmother? So who is at graver risk here? Really, it's always going to be the monarchy. It's always going to be the people closest to the crown, because Harry, nobody cares about the fifth in line to the throne. If you want to be written into the history books, you don't go after Harry and Meghan. You go after William, Charles, George, Charlotte, Louis maybe, but mostly those big three, Charles, William, and George, because that may change the course of history. Going after Harry and Meghan, who gives a crap? In the grand scheme of things, people go after the people at the highest. John, who was it? David Mark Chapman, I think it was, who went after John Lennon, who killed John Lennon. He went after a Beatle, one of the biggest bands in the world, a former member of the Beatles. So why would he go after perhaps their producer or one of their stand-ins or something when he could go after John Lennon himself? The logic there is completely missing from Harry and Meghan. Nobody cares about them in the way they're thinking they are. They're not these huge, huge targets. Yes, there were a small handful of racist allegations perhaps made against Meghan, but that's not what's fueling the hate and the social media grievance against Harry and Meghan. It's them. It's them. They're the ones that are making people so irritated with them that they may get hit with eggs. They may get hit with tomatoes. They will be booed. They are the subject of hate because of Harry and Meghan. It has nothing really to do with the monarchy itself. It's all about Harry and Meghan's actions. They're the ones generating you could call it maybe even the hate campaign against them. They're the ones who are making themselves basically a nuisance on the public. So the public is like, you know what? I find you a lot more annoying than I do your family. So the hate is going that way, but it's Harry and Meghan generated. It's Harry and Meghan focused. It's Harry and Meghan driven. That is what's going on here. And just to end on this note, I think it's important to mention that if you were, let's say, somebody who despised Harry and Meghan, wouldn't you think that perhaps Harry's worst punishment is not something happening to him and his family? It's still being stuck with Meghan Markle, because that's a level of torture I think most of us would like to avoid, is having to live with Meghan Markle every single day. And Harry has chosen that life, and that's a life he has to live with. That was his choice. And Harry and Meghan, if they wanted to be part of the monarchy, if they wanted to be on the balcony, if they wanted their kids in the ceremony, if they want a mention of Archie's birthday, That's not the life they chose. They chose to go outside. They chose to make their own money, and choices have consequences. Just like Harry marrying Meghan Markle. Yes, that Harry may come to find that it was the biggest mistake of his entire life. Now, he doesn't love his children, but the loss that Harry has endured from marrying Meghan is incomprehensible in so many ways. Harry should be at the forefront. His children should be at the forefront with his brother at this stage. Not quite as in center, but it should be on the balcony. It should have been Charles and Camilla in the middle, the Wales is on one side, the right-hand side, and Harry and his wife and his children on the other. Harry chose this life, and this life has consequences. These life decisions, not being liked by the public, struggling to make it in Hollywood, struggling with all the things, the financial burdens, security, all these things that Harry is supposedly struggling with are all self-inflicted. And I'm so sorry, Harry, but I have zero sympathy for you. If you wanted an easier life, you should have picked a different wife. So guys, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the Wales' children in the coronation and Catherine and her children in this recent, very, very sweet Mother's Day picture. It was lovely to see, guys. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.